single day.
And he tried.
Stayed for like 15 minutes.
They would switch coats, and then he would sit in Ryan's spot until Miss Lewis found out. He would go to Mr. Holmes' pastor until Mr. Holmes found out.
It was sort of like a setup.
That's hilarious.
And then we sort of then we did it about 17 times.
And then Miss Lewis was hilarious. She said, "Really?" To Abram.
Oh yeah, Abram.
Not you.
I'm a little angel.
Why is there no one here?
Because nobody wants to go in the rain. There's 21st century still.
But me and Jordan asked were running in the rain and jumping in the rain. Ryan, can you put down your chair today? Ow.
Most people, can you turn on everything? Put a chair on your foot, that doesn't hurt.
No, I'll just fit it back on.
Young man.
It's already swollen, right? And like, I'm just
Oh.
Alright.
Okay.
And
Another person.
another person. I was dancing in the rain.
Good for you.
And then me and Jordan asked her, like, okay, let's stop dancing and just run and jump until Miss Whitner yelled at us. She's like, you guys are gonna fall!
Die.
Oh, I know how to run without Swivl. We don't care. Probably. I don't think
Yeah, pretty easy. Stand on your toe.
Parkour!
Don't really run.
Cold.
Well, you go for the cat. Sprint, sprint, sprint.
We did say that to us last
Do 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 do.
Go over there anymore.
I love Pokemon.
Do 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 do. There's like nobody here.
I actually have a job on here, man.
Play that for the news. Like
What?
the 21st I still remember one time when I saw that's so cute.
I got You have the worst voice for Jones. You let Jones sing it down.
Jones Turtle.
There we go. Alright.
It's not coming up.
Hey, let's give it a second.
I brushed my teeth.
Oh, I see a W. Oh no,
That's from like.
I'm going bam.
20% skills are an elaborate set of skills that are used in this class.
I know I did.
Oh, Jim's still.
Wait, am I in two? I got that right up. I need to right before. Let's go. Maybe Adrian only did a one. Why is the projector? It's broken. I don't like
Stranger goes up to Stranger goes up to you. I don't like it. Maybe it's the right plug-in for the controller.
No, it's muted. That's why. There we go. Steven, you're our hero.
I'm amazing, man. I know it.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, you can just go on.
Oh my
We have
God.
to deal with Halo, man.
Last year we said, come on, ladies. You can move your hips. Come on, ladies.
Move your magnets.
You can drive by. Come on, ladies. That's what we have.
Move your magnets. Alex and Jim, I'll find some right there.
Yes, I know.
I know.
We're hot.
Yeah. Battleship is awesome. Or yeah,
What?
Coach K doesn't have the jerseys yet, so it's not bad. You can actually call me. I mean, it's not. So, because my brother.
Yeah, he wrote it
When he
back.
wins, six for everyone. So I'm happy the best.
Hopefully we still get a car game or whatever.
The only fun thing about floor hockey and gym is being goalie. Because if you're a player, you can't even shoot it. It's not even hockey.
So if you want to call me Freckles Jr., you don't work at
What's that?
I have three. My brother was in the classroom and got
Yeah, I got a brother. You have a little brother?
That's him. What's your question?
All three on the table. Circle of life.
I always play for the team that's down the goal. Unless Coach K wants to play the whole time, then he picks the
Welcome
side.
to the circle of life.
We would lose. We'd be very, very sad.
Good morning, Westgate Wolverines. Let's pause for a few months of silent reflection. Flags out for us today are from Mr. Thomas's class. They are Jocelyn Jones, Michelle Schuler, Connor Drew, Ben Deere. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be seated. Today is Wednesday, November 18, 2015.
After-school activities today are Homework Heroes in room 185 and Westgate Cares for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students in the LMC. Amazing Minds in room 175.
Additional announcements. Westgate Skate Night is this Sunday from 5 to 7 p.m. at Orbis Skate Center. Admission is free. Bring your own clean skates or rent them for $3. We will be collecting canned goods to help the Wheeling Township Food Pantry. Hope to see you there. Spracks of the day are Marcel helped me when I swept from Greta T. Michelle said I had a nice headband from Nikki. Gianna helped me finish my artwork from Liam. Julia helped me put away my lunchbox from Serena M. There are no birthdays today.
We are
Addie Murray,
Rachel Malik and Aiden Kent.
signing off. Westgate leaders remember habit 7. Sharpen us off. Balance feels best. Have a great Wolverine day and stay tuned for the video.
The video.
So we've already seen it.
Oh, it's even long.
I apologize.
Hello everyone, this is your live
Oh wait, we already watched
Can't
it.
hear it though.
Yeah, we still watched it.
and I am
Can
here
you turn it up for me? I'll try.
with illustrator Ethan
No, off,
Long, who
off.
will be
We're
visiting
good. We're done, right? We've seen it, right, Kenneth?
Yeah.
Alright, so get rid of that, close that out. Alright, so kiddos, give me 5, please. Will you please go to a spot in the room where you can be extremely focused and comfortable with me, like, speaking? I'm going to do 100% teacher-led, so you just need to listen the entire time and think. Can you find a spot where you won't be distracted and you can think? And you'll be comfortable until gym time, so it's about an hour. Alright? This is one of the toughest brain activities I'm going to have you do this year. It's going to have you sit and completely reflect on everything that I tell you about. And you're going to decide if you're doing really well at this kind of thing, or if you're doing a little poorly, or if somewhere in between. And you're actually going to give yourself kind of like a grade, but grades don't matter. You know, this isn't like a grade for class. Does everybody understand this is more about you, so that you can recognize things you're really good at, and recognize things that you need to work on. Right? Alright, so I want you to be in that spot, and I want you to, you can move throughout the period if you need a new spot, but I don't want you to be distracted at all. I want you to be thinking about this the whole time. So in your brain right now, can you start thinking, I'm going to listen to Mr. Solars' voice, I'm going to read along with him, and when he asks me to do something, I'm just going to do that, and we're going to do that for an hour. It's very teacher-led. It's like monkey see, monkey do. I'll tell you what to do, you do it. Sound good? Yeah? Alright, so put your name on the front cover if you haven't already, and then flip to the next side. This packet has all 34 skills that I consider 21st century skills that we work on in our classroom. It's one of the things that we do that's unique to our classroom that other classes may or may not be doing, but it's not in the curriculum. It's not like everybody has to do this in any school. It's not part of like the curriculum. Do you understand me? Yeah. This is something extra. I give you a report card every trimester with your regular report card that has a grade out of these 34 skills. But it's not an A, B, C, D kind of grade. It's just a number. And the number means nothing because you can't say I got like all the points or none of the points. It's a ranking. So when you see your number, you're going to look at the high numbers that you get and you're going to say, these are my strengths, the ones that are higher. And then I'm going to look at the lower numbers that you get and you're going to say, these are the things I need to work on, right? Because I want to raise those numbers. But the number itself means nothing. I could have used letters like Z, Y, X, and T or something like that. I could have chosen anything and just said all the X's I want you to work harder at and all the T's I want you to be proud of. So, but I used numbers. But the numbers aren't a grade. It's more of a ranking. Are you hearing me? So I will tell you that typically your grade in each of these things, even though it's not a grade, will be out of 10 by the end of the year. So like a 10 out of 10 would be the most you could get in a subject in like one 21st century skill. But it's the fall trimester right now, so you can only get 8 out of those 10 because I want to have room for growth. So if you can get 8 this trimester, you can get 9 in the winter, and you can get 10 in the spring. Does that make sense? But of course you can get anything lower than that too, right? Right. So I'll tell you right now that nobody gets a 0. Everybody would get a 1 or more. Are you hearing that? Mm-hmm. Now a 1 would just say, I really need to work on that skill. It doesn't say, boy, you're a dummy. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not calling you a dummy. It's saying, I'm really hoping that you'll notice that this is a skill you have to work on. You don't say, I got 1 out of 8 or 1 out of 10 and feel bad. You say, I'm going to work on it. Just like when you get 10 out of 10, you don't say, I'm perfect. You say, I'm probably as much as Mr. Solars can expect of me for a 10 or 11-year-old. Right? If, not this trimester, but spring, you'll get 10 out of 10 maybe? Right, everyone? Yeah. So when you get that 10 out of 10, you don't say, I'm perfect and I have no room to grow. It's just that Mr. Solars can't expect more from you in this category as a kid. Hopefully you'll continue to grow as you get older. Okay. So, would you look at that first one? There's a bar, like a line graph. Can you see the line graph? It's not a graph, but it's a line. Count up the number of dashes that are in there. Don't count the arrowheads, just count the dashes. How many did you get? 10. So we're going to put a dot, like not a little dot, like a circle filled in, where we think we are along each of these continuums. And we need to know that we can't put a dot on 10 this trimester or on 9. Right, everyone? 8 would mean we're doing as good as a 5th grader can do in this area. Right, kiddos? So 8 would be the highest we can give ourselves, and then we can go down to 1, but we wouldn't be below 1. So just know that that's how we're going to rate ourselves today. So let's all do a practice one right now. With your eraser on your pencil, I want you to put a circle and fill it in at the number 7 on this first graph, but with your eraser. So find the 7 mark, put a circle, and fill it in at the 7 mark. Do you all know how to fill it in with your pencil if I let you flip it over?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So that's just a practice. Did you all do it though? Everyone did it with their eraser, yeah?
Yes.
Yep. Great. Alright. So, now I'm going to tell you what the skill is, and I'm going to tell you about the behaviors you need to do, but I need you to get one more tool for me. Can you please go get a highlighter? And you have your pencil already. So let me tell you how I rated everybody on the report card, how I did the 34 skills. Here's what I did. I read communicate clearly, and I read through these 4 bullets, and I said to myself, which students in this class are doing these 4 behaviors at the top level that they could as a 5th grader? And I went down the list of my class roster and said, these are the kids that get 8s. And I'm telling you, I'm careful about that, right? I don't just give 8s away. That would not be fair. So some categories there are no 8s. Do you hear me? Because there are some categories where I think we still have so much to grow as a class. But then I would say, okay, I've got a few 8s now. Here, who was the next level of kids that were good at these behaviors? And I gave them 7s. And then I said, who were the next level of kids with this behavior? And I gave them 6s. And then I did that until I ran out of kids. So sometimes I get down pretty low, down to the 1s, 2s, 3s. But sometimes I never get down to the 1s, 2s, 3s. Everybody's been filled up before I even get there. You sort of understand me? Yes. So you're going to think the same way. You're going to say when you rate yourself, if I give myself an 8, I'm thinking that there's probably no one in the class that's better, but I might be at their level. I might be at the same person's level. So I might be tied for the best at the skill with other people. And that's fine. It's hard to do, but it's fine, right? Don't be too modest where you never give yourself credit for that. This is really about you. This isn't really about me. You guys hear me? This is really about you reflecting. So if you give yourself an 8, and you believe that there's really nobody else in the class doing these behaviors more often than you or better than you, then you can give yourself an 8 if you believe that. But if you think there's a tier above you or 2 tiers of kids above you that are doing better, mark yourself down to a 7 or a 6 or a 5 or whatever you think you need to go. Keep in mind though, it's not like there's not 26 rankings, so it's not who's number 1 and who's number 2 and who's number 3. It's a group of kids are number 8, a group of kids are number 7, a group of kids are number 6, right? So you got to balance being not too hard on yourself and not being too easy on yourself. Do you guys know that that's a hard skill too? JJ? You really shouldn't, because I didn't, and the key is going to be to try to figure out, what does Mr. Solars see of me? Because if Mr. Solars doesn't see me doing these behaviors, he can't give me credit for doing those behaviors, right? So you might believe you're stronger at something than I do, because you know you have the ability, but then you're not showing me those abilities in class. So you got to be careful. You want to rate yourself for what you believe you are, but you have to know that I might be lower than you if I don't see those behaviors. Are you clear on that?
Yes.
Because I can't assume things. I can't just assume you know all that. Juliana?
Can you rate yourself like a 6.5?
That's what he said. So I think you shouldn't. I think you should just stick with the actual numbers, because I stuck with the actual numbers. So you're going to try to be comparing to what I gave you as a score. Okay? All right. This is the hard part. It's all listening and reflecting from here on out, and it's intense, and it takes the whole 45 minutes, and we still have a half hour tomorrow to finish. It's long. In previous years, I've let you do this collaboratively in groups, but there was just too much confusion, so I'm doing it so I can explain things along the way. You guys understand it's teacher-led and a little bit boring, but at least you'll understand it?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get started then, kiddos. Freya?
So do we like
Oh, no, it's okay. Whatever you think you are, but also keep in mind I have to be able to see it. So you're kind of making a judgment call. All right, here we go, kiddo. I'm skipping the top grade inbox because it's not important necessarily to you. It might be important to your folks. So communication and collaboration, the first category is communicate clearly. So there's big words in all of these things. You have to try to just understand as best you can what it's trying to get at. Don't give up. Nobody gets to just tune out because it's too confusing. I'll try to explain things the best I can. All right. Do you articulate your thoughts, use your words, and ideas effectively using oral, that's out loud, written, and nonverbal communication skills in a variety of forms and contexts? So do you talk and write and get your thoughts out clearly? Do you listen effectively to figure out meaning, including knowledge, value, attitudes, and intentions? So do you listen to others and try to actually understand what they mean rather than just hear them? You actually listen to understand. Do you use communication for a range of purposes? Like, do you try to inform people? Do you instruct people? Do you motivate people? Do you persuade people? And do you communicate effectively in all different kinds of environments, not just the classroom, but out at recess and at lunch and homework club and all those things? Do you communicate effectively with people around you? So decide right now if you're an 8 or what level below that you are. Remember, nobody can be a 9 or a 10. And then no. Oh, thank you. I didn't tell you what to do the highlighter. In every category, try to find one thing that you can say, I don't do this one very well, I need to get better at, and highlight the one thing that you'd like to get better at in each category, and then give yourself the score. Okay? Try to give yourself one thing that you'd like to get better at in each category, highlight it, and then give yourself the score out of 8.
with your pencil?
So highlighter for the text, and then pencil for the dot. Yep. I want the pencil for the dot because you might change your mind as you go. And make your dot big enough that I can see it or whatever too. I'm not going to judge you on what you give yourself. I just would like to know how you feel. Number 2, collaborate with others. Do you demonstrate the ability to work effectively and respectfully with partners in small groups? Do you assume shared responsibility for collaborative work, like you take on responsibility yourself, without dominating or letting everyone else do all the work? Are you sensitive to the needs of your peers and do what you can to help them? And do you use social skills in order to avoid conflict and maintain happiness? Highlight one that you'd like to work a little bit more strongly on this next trimester and give yourself a score.
So would you do a highlighter in communicate clearly?
Yeah, so each section. Yep, thanks. Number 3. So do one for every section. Because every time I pause, you should highlight.
Some of them are like two-part questions. Should we just highlight like the part?
Whatever you think. We just want to kind of make a goal for ourselves to do something a little bit more. We all can improve, even if we're at 8 out of 8, we still need to get to 9 and 10, right? Like that should be our goal. All right. Bless you. Think interdependently, which independently means alone. Interdependently means think of other people's opinions mixed in with your own. Do you guys get interdependence? It means use other people's ideas and your own. So exercise flexibility. That means allow yourself to be flexible and willing to be helpful in making necessary compromises to accomplish a common goal. So do you compromise when you're working with others? Realize that a group can accomplish more than an individual. That's our 2 brains are better than 1 strategy. Listen to and strongly consider the ideas of others. Like, don't just hear them, but actually say, I think your idea might be really good. Let's do that one. Do you leverage strengths of others to accomplish a common goal? Think about writing circles. I said I put different kinds of writers together so that you can help each other at your own strengths and weaknesses. And do you value the individual contributions made by each team member? Do you appreciate everybody who's in your group because they all bring something a little different to the table? Make sure you pick one that you'd like to do a little bit better on and give yourself a score out of 8. Remember, these scores mean nothing. Your report cards are all done. This won't affect my grade in any way. This is just a self-assessment and a reflection. So you're not changing my mind about it. It gets harder. Think creatively. Do you use a wide range of idea creation techniques such as brainstorming, ways of coming up with new ideas? Do you do that a lot? Do you create new and worthwhile ideas, both incremental and radical concepts? Do you create really crazy ideas, but also some things that we can actually possibly accomplish? Do you improve on them? Do you elaborate, refine, analyze, and evaluate ideas in order to improve and maximize creative efforts? So do you not only have an idea, but work at that idea to try to make it happen? Do you come up with creative solutions to problems after examining various possibilities from many angles? And do you demonstrate originality and inventiveness in your work and understand the real-world limits to adopting new ideas? So when you come up with a crazy idea, do you know that it really can't happen the way it is because it's just too out there? Are you aware of the real-world limits? So do you think creatively, and how much so, and how far do you take your creative thoughts? If you just come up with them, it's not enough if you don't develop them. So think creatively. Try not to highlight anything that you don't understand, because it'll be hard to develop that as a goal later on. You sort of get the idea, even if you have to change the wording. You can, but don't. If we get too many highlights, we'll be overwhelmed. So don't regularly do 2. You can do 2 once in a while, but don't do it often. The next one, work creatively with others. This combines collaboration with creativity. Do you develop, implement, and communicate new ideas to others effectively, or do you generally keep it to yourself? Are you open and responsive to new and diverse perspectives? Do you want people's opinions on your creative ideas? Do you incorporate their group input and feedback into the work to try to make it better or to try to improve it? Rate yourself on how you allow others into your creative mind and how you accept their input. Implement innovations. So innovations are actually like, I have a creative idea, now I'm gonna make it, or build it, or design it, or, you know, like Rube Goldberg would be like one of the examples, right? On the cardboard challenge, yep. So generate tangible, useful, novel, original, clever, or ingenious ideas. So come up with the idea. They might be drawings, products, solutions, or techniques, or anything like that. And then do you actually take those innovations to the public so that an authentic audience can see your innovations? So do I share it with a bigger audience and let people know on our blogs, in person, whatever? Do I let others in on my ideas? So think about how you implement your innovations. Would you guys mind putting your number above the dot so that I don't have to really count? Like, you know, if it's a 6 or a 5 or a 4, would you put that above it? It'll just be quicker if I glance at it to see where you're at. I'm sorry, when I said your number, I mean the number that you gave it a score of. I wasn't very clear on that. So if you gave it a 6, put a 6. Alright. Thinking critically. Do you use various types of reasoning to figure things out, like inductive and deductive reasoning? I haven't taught that yet, but it's the idea. Overhead Mystery uses one of those two reasonings. I'm forgetting which one. One of them brings you in through the details, and the other one brings you out. But the idea is, do you solve problems in different sorts of ways, as appropriate to the situation? Do you analyze how parts of a whole interact with each other to produce an overall outcome in a system? So like, if I've got a problem, do I analyze all the pieces of the problem to try to solve it? Do I look at evidence to figure out how I could possibly solve this problem? Or am I more likely to go ask somebody for help whenever I'm confused or stuck? Like, how good am I at trying to figure things out before I give up on my own critical thinking? So if you're I don't mean be persistent to a fault where you get the problem wrong, but do you really try to figure things out before you go to ask somebody for help? That's really what this is about. And do you do different ways of trying to figure things out? So thinking critically is basically persevering with a problem that you have.
Sometimes it's kind of like hard to like go with one of them. Something else like that goes like
Yeah.
with the topic.
Both of those are pretty poorly written, so if you want to add a behavior that you think supports it, go for it. Yeah, those behaviors were pretty poorly written. I need to work on that one.
So, Mr. Lambs enjoyed like destiny like that, and I figured out for a long time.
Yeah, well, there's time limits, right? I do agree. There are time limits. So it's a balance, you guys. There's some kids who like, I don't know how to do this, I'm just going to ask, or I'm just going to sit here and wait. That's not good. Then there's kids who like persevere so long that they never solve it and never ask for help. That's not good either. But there's some kind of happy medium where you try to solve it yourself, but then you go for help when you need it, right? Yeah.
Also, just did you help make this packet?
I did.
The one was developed by Paul Solar.
Yeah, this is my packet. I took ideas from 2 different groups, and this is actually in my book as well. It's the T chapter for 21st century skills. So all of these things are in the book as it's written here. Although I revised last night before we printed this out today, because I was doing your report credits last night for 21st century skills. Yeah, it is pretty cool. Although it's very gobbledygookish. I need a kid-friendly one, so I got to work on that eventually. I'll work on it. It's just when will I have time? All right, make judgments and decisions. Do you effectively analyze and evaluate evidence, arguments, claims, and beliefs, and alternate points of view? Think about energy debates, kiddos. Do you look at evidence, the arguments, people's claims, and their beliefs to try to analyze their point of view and try to understand things? Do you interpret information and draw conclusions based on the best analysis and the best information? Are you able to take information and analyze it and make a judgment and a decision? That's really what this category is all about, making judgments and decisions based on facts, and knowing that some facts aren't actually facts, they're opinions. So you can't use those to make a judgment unless you think it's a valued opinion. also do that a lot when we read. We make judgments and decisions based on evidence. You guys are always doing inferences based on evidence, right? Ask questions. Now, in our classroom, I'm always like one of the last people you ask, so it doesn't mean the teacher, it just means asking questions, okay? So let's read what it says. Do you ask questions to fill in the gaps between what is known and what is unknown? Do you ask questions at all levels of Bloom's taxonomy of thinking but match the purpose with the correct type of question? Bloom's taxonomy starts with like simple, skinny questions and goes up to those really fat questions that are pretty hard and tough. Do you remember our pretty hard and tough questions, right? So they're saying, do you ask all kinds of questions, the real skinny ones and the fat ones, not just one or the other? And then, do you identify and ask significant questions that clarify various points of view and lead to better solutions? So when you're a little bit wondering about things and curious about things, do you ask others? Like, can you clarify this for me? Is this what the author means here? Is this what this article is really about? Do you ask people for clarification? Because that's important. Solve problems. Do you solve different kinds of non-familiar problems in both conventional and innovative ways? So do you solve problems like in a standard way that you've been taught, but also creative ways that you think might work? Do you, when appropriate, challenge yourself to find a whole bunch of correct ways to solve a problem? Because oftentimes we just do it once and say we're done, but there might be other creative ways of solving problems, especially if other people have ideas. We should think that that might be a way to solve it too. Are we aware of what others are doing as a means of solving a problem? So looking around us and saying, oh yeah, you know, right now Rachel's doing this and Steven's doing this, so I'm Alex, so I could probably do what they're doing. Are you aware of people and use that as a means of solving a problem? Do you ask your peers whenever necessary to solve a problem that you can't figure out? I didn't even put, do you ask a teacher? Because I don't even want that on there. Ask peers first, right? So that second to last one's a big one. Are you just aware of what others do? A couple of you are pretty great at that, actually, where you just kind of look around and you're like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I see what they're doing, so I'm good. I'll figure it out. Some of you are really good at that. Others of you you're not as aware of what others are doing, and you might need to work on that one. Which brings us into awareness and reflection. That leads us right into it. So, we talk about metacognition a lot. It's kind of like knowing that you're confused, or knowing that you're in a good groove, or knowing that you're off task, and correcting it. Just being very aware of where you are. So let's look at some of the things that it says you need to do to be good metacognitive people. You need to know what you know, and know what you don't know. A lot of kids don't even realize they don't know certain things. You need to know that you don't know it. You need to know what to do and when to do it. So in class, you're a student-led classroom. You pretty much have to practice knowing what to do and when to do it all the time. But are you the one doing it, or do you let others do it? Yeah, have fun. Have fun. Are you conscious of the steps and strategies during an act of problem solving? Do you know what you have to do each step of the way? Or do you kind of lose your not focus, but lose your steam because you're like, I don't really know what to do next? Do you develop a plan of action like in Passion Time? Remember that plan over a period of time and then reflect back and evaluate the plan upon its completion? Because that's super important. We do it on Trello. We want to plan and we want to follow that plan. Are you aware of your actions and the effects of those actions on others and on the environment? I call this like being a good chess player. Do you realize that if you do this, then this will happen, then this will happen, and then this will happen? Are you aware of what's going to happen with your actions? Can you shift gears if your plan isn't working? Like, do you do that without being told? Do you just go, you know what, this isn't working, I'm going to change my plan, I'm going to do something different? And do you explain your thinking and the strategies used while making decisions? Those are all metacognitive behaviors. So choose one or two to make a goal and give yourself a score out of 8. Reflect and synthesize. We do it at the end of many blog entries. but we also do it through discussion in class. Synthesize means combine what you know with what you just learned. So you do that when you reflect sometimes. You start to synthesize. You combine what you already knew with what you just learned. So reflect and synthesize says to reflect critically on experiences in order to avoid repeating mistakes and to inform your future progress. Synthesize and make connections between information and arguments. And identify those aha moments when something finally clicks. Reflecting and synthesizing is taking a break at the end when you're done learning something and saying, what did I just learn? What's important for me to remember from all of this? Apply past knowledge to new situations. Do you make connections by referring to the past and past experiences? Say, oh yeah, I totally remember when I did it this way or whatever. Do you draw from experience when confronted with new and perplexing problems? I know how to solve this. I did this once before. Or I did something similar. Do you take meaning from one experience, carry it forth, and apply it in a new and novel situation? Do you transfer the skills I teach you to new situations? Say, you know what, Mr. Solars taught this to us. We can do this later. And do you recognize similarities between past experiences and current challenges and draw from what was learned? Make a goal and choose your score out of 8. Don't see what we're doing. Thank you for coming. Alright, so this is like crazy complex. So it's a 21st century skills progress report. The kids are self-assessing them right now. I'm going through them all, but it's gobbledygook, so I'm trying to clarify as I go. They can give themselves a score of up to 8, so the 9 and 10 would be here. So they can go up to 8 and they have to put a dot and a number that represents what score they give them. They have to highlight at least one thing that, preferably one thing, that shows what they'd like to work on as a goal for the next week. So you can walk around if you don't mind and make sure everybody's okay. Kiddos, if you're confused, feel free to ask questions, okay? Alright. Here we go. Flexibility and adaptability. Adapt to change. Can you adapt to the different roles, jobs, responsibilities, schedules, and things that happen in our classroom whenever things change? Can you work effectively in a classroom where I don't tell you what to do and where priorities are always changing? Like you have to figure it out. You just have to know what's most important. So like if I left right now and I didn't put a schedule on the board, would you be able to look at what we've been doing for the past couple weeks and decide how to effectively use your time in this classroom? Think about that. If you're not the greatest at that, that's okay. You're 10, you're 11. But it's something we want to be able to build. The idea that we can be independent and we can adapt to a changing environment. It's not what we're used to. Think and learn flexibly. Do you allow yourself to change your mind when you receive new information? Do you know when it's appropriate to be broad and global in your thinking, like overhead mystery? And when a situation requires detailed precision, like the actual details, like maybe in reading or in writing? Do you know when to be broad and when to be specific? Do you understand that there are a whole bunch of correct ways to solve most problems? And that your way is not the only correct way? And that your neighbor's way might also be good too? Are you able to think and learn flexibly? This one, you guys, I'm going to take this out of my next version of it. Demonstrate learning through all intelligence pathways. It's not a skill so much as what does your teacher allow you to do. So I don't love that it's not really your fault if you don't do any of this. But here's the thing. There's a person named Howard Gardner who wrote a book called The 7 Intelligences, which now is multiple intelligences. There's 8 of them now. And he says that there's like 8 main ways that we learn. And I want you to just know, I want you to have heard of them so that you can decide if you ever learn in these different ways, because I think it's interesting. Whether you set a goal or give yourself a grade on this doesn't matter to me. Just learn these 8 with me. Are you ready? Okay. He says you learn interpersonally when you work with other people. You learn intrapersonally, which is when you work by yourself. You might be a logical, mathematical person who thinks with like numbers and what makes the most sense. You know, you think, well, that doesn't make sense. That's a logical, mathematical perspective. You might be a visual, spatial person where you need to see things, whether written or pictures or in person. Seeing things helps you to understand. You might be a verbal, linguistic person, somebody who, like right now, is in a happy place because Mr. Solars is talking to you and explaining things to you. That's verbal, linguistic. But if you're saying, my gosh, Mr. Solars, this is too much information, I can't do it, then you might not be verbal, linguistic because I'm just constantly talking and giving you information and I have very little visuals to show you except this packet. Bodily kinesthetic is when you learn best when you're moving. Maybe you're building or creating or designing, or you're doing activities or physical stuff. Musical rhythmic is when you might be able to study for a test with the radio on. Or you might be able to think best when there's like music in the background or whatever. And then there's the naturalist, who's at best learning when they're with nature or at least like the world. Like when you just feel calm, when you're like out of a boxy room like this and you're just with, like sitting in a garden. Like that might be where you might learn best. You know, there's different kinds of styles like that. Jeremy? It doesn't matter to me what you do with this section. It's not really one I can have you grade yourself on. It's more, do I let you do all that? Not really. Like some of those, like we'll turn on the brainwave music, but that distracts some of you, so you sit further away. You know, but we don't always do that. But notice I brought plants in, so I'm at least trying to bring in nature, right? I'm trying to do all those things. It's just hard to do everything. All right, so let's go on to the next one that you have to evaluate yourself on. Remember, hey kiddos, do you remember our crossovers? Remember at the beginning of the year, do you remember I told you there's a line? I told you that first day, there's a line that goes straight down your body. That midline, whenever you cross the midline, if you're starting to zone out, that fires endorphins in your brains to keep you awake. So if you're feeling tired, because this is a very teacher-led activity, cross your midline. Cross your midline with your hands or your legs. I like to crack my back, because do you see how I'm crossing my midline? I like to scratch my back, but they say just pinching your opposite ear is also a way. But you always want to do it without distracting your neighbors, right kiddos? Right kiddos? Yes. Oh, one person answered that. Here you go, manage goals and time. And you don't have to wait till I tell you to do the stretches. You do them when you need them, but try not to distract. Manage goals and time. Kiddos, do you set goals that have actual tangible and intangible success criteria? Like tangible means that you can touch it. Do you know, like, if I set this goal, I will have done this thing, and now I can see it, I'm done. Or do you set some intangible goals too, where it's like, I want to get better at something, and it's hard to really, you can't really touch better at. So do you set goals that are both tangible and intangible? Do you balance short-term and long-term goals? Do you have goals that are like, I need to figure this out now, and goals that I want to work on over a long period of time? And do you utilize your time and manage your workload efficiently? So are you good at focusing in and getting stuff done, not making it last forever to get things done? So how do you manage your goals and how do you manage your time is this one. Give yourself a goal and give yourself a score. Now, be a risk taker is one that kids are like, oh good, I'm going to get one that's really good. Well, read what it says to be a risk taker though, so that you really understand what it means. Do you take educated risks? That means like things that are worth risk, like risks that are worth taking. And frequently push the boundaries of your own perceived limits. Like, I don't think I could rappel down a castle wall, but then I did. Right? Like, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I would ever write a book, although I wanted to. But then somebody said, hey, will you write me a book? And I said, sure. And I did. Like, you think you have limits, but do you take these risks that push you past your limits? Are you resilient if your risk-taking isn't successful? Like when they told me that my R chapter and my E chapter needs to be thrown in the garbage. Did I say, oh, I quit, I'm not going to do this, I can't write those over again? Or do you just say, okay, throw those out, start over? So are you resilient? Do you bounce back? Do you know when certain risks aren't worth taking? It's not worth jumping off the building, Mr. Solars. I'm not going to do that. That's not safe. Right? It's not a risk worth taking. Do you view failure as an opportunity to learn? Like in our math class, we constantly talk about it. I don't care how many mistakes you made as long as you'll listen to me while I reteach it to you and understand it's part of the learning process. Do you understand that creativity and innovation takes time? It's a long-term process of successes and mistakes. You can't be successful without making a million mistakes along the way. All of the great millionaires, billionaires will tell you about the fact that they made a bunch of mistakes along the way. But yeah, well, you could totally. There's a lot of them around nowadays. Google them, tweet them. I don't know. I'm sure you could get a millionaire to tell you how they made the mistakes along the way. I'll work on that if you'd like me to. All right, so score yourself and then go on to be a self-directed learner. I was very hard on this next category, be self-directed learners, because my goal is a student-led classroom, which means all self-directed learners. So I don't think I gave an 8 to anyone in this category. I just think that's true for me. So that doesn't mean you don't believe you're an 8, though. But here's how tough I am. Let's look at what I'm wanting you guys to do. I want you to go beyond what's required. Go beyond the minimum to explore and expand your own learning and opportunities to gain expertise. I don't want you just to say, Mr. Solars told me to do this, so I did it, and I'm done. I want you to go beyond that. I want you to demonstrate the initiative to advance your skill levels towards a professional level. I don't want you to be okay with being a 10 and 11-year-old skill level. I want you to say, I could be a 14-year-old skill level. I can do that in certain things, in my strengths, right? Why should I limit myself and say it's good enough? I want you to demonstrate commitment to learning as a lifelong process and say, I'm not just going to go to school and learn, I'm going to go home and learn too, but that doesn't mean I have to read and research all the time. It just means I'm always open to learning. And when I'm curious about something, I'm going to research it and find out. And I'm going to work on tasks because of the challenges they present, rather than getting a reward for it. I'm intrinsically motivated. I want to learn. I don't want to learn because I'm going to get a grade or I'm going to make my teacher happy. I want to learn because I want to be a better person or a smarter person or a more informed person. That's what being self-directed is to me. And I want to push you guys to that. So I don't think I've given any 8s yet, because I don't think anybody always seeks out doing better than what's okay. You're all doing what you're able to, and it's hard. But I think you can push and do even more. And it doesn't mean more work, it just means different work. It means doing it at a higher level. So this one, I mentioned it in the being risk taker part, but persist despite setbacks is a big deal. Stick to the task until it's completed. Don't give up. Stay focused on your task without being distracted. And have a whole bunch of strategies, a repertoire of strategies, to solve problems if one of your strategies isn't working. So every time you have setbacks and you're having struggles, know what to do to solve those. And yeah, sometimes it can include asking an adult, but that should be one of your last strategies. Try to come up with some before you ask an adult. So I think this next one is the one that I wish every kid would get an 8 on by spring. 10 on then. A 10 on by spring. I wish you could all be a 10 at this next one. Because to me, this next one is what makes me me. I'm like so curious about everything. And that makes me a bit of a geek, but I love it. I'm really proud of this part of my geekiness. I love that I pretty much always have either a computer or a phone on me, so that every time I'm curious about something, I can Google information about it. It doesn't mean I'll always find the answer, but I'll always get somewhere with it and learn a little bit more. Because I like knowing a little bit about a lot of things. So every time I don't know something, I go, let me go find out about that. And I don't become an expert at it, but I at least will learn something. And I love that. It makes my life very meaningful. So I hope that you guys can all build your curiosity this year. So here's the behaviors that I'm looking for that. I want you to wonder about things. I want you to do something about your wondering. So don't just say, I wonder why, and then go, well, let's go play. I'd like you to say, I wonder why. Let's just quickly look it up, or let's just quickly ask, or let's just quickly find out. And then once you're into it, you may want to do more. But quickly is usually a good way to start. Identify new problems that need to be solved and figure out their causes. What's making this a problem? How can I solve it? Not just problems in my life, but problems in the world. Enjoy figuring out problems without needing adults to help you. Even if you don't get as far with it, it's still pretty meaningful that you're a 10 or 11-year-old and you did as much as you did without an adult. And then feel compelled, enthusiastic, and passionate about learning, wondering, and mastering. Inquiring just means like wondering and finding out, and then mastering. I don't do much with mastering where you're like the best at it, but be curious and want to be passionate about learning, if you can. And I think it'll make you at least an interesting person. Like, I can be dull when I'm doing my job, but I'm telling you, like, if we were just having conversations, I'll drop really random things in the conversations that people are like, I have no clue what you're talking about. And that makes me unique and different and someone who's interesting to talk to, even if I'm a little weird. And that's okay. Alright? So don't be afraid to be a little bit of a geek. Alright? Last one in this category is learn continuously, kiddos. I want you to value doubt rather than certainty. Sometimes you just aren't going to know what something is or what it means and be okay with that because the world doesn't know it. And just be like, that's okay. I don't know. I don't understand. Explore alternatives rather than think that there's just one correct answer. So when you see it like, I know that this is right, be willing to say, I know that that could be right too. Constantly be on the lookout for new and better ways of doing things. Look, I've revised this last night. This is already in my book, it's already published, and I changed it already. And every year I've changed it, because I'm constantly on the lookout for new and better ways of doing things. There were things in here that I didn't like, and I'm already going to change it again when I get rid of the multiple intelligences, right? I'm always trying to find a better way of doing something. Look at WEX. I've never done WEX with computers. Did you see how we did everything with computers yesterday? I'm always trying to change things. Believe that problems, situations, tensions, conflicts, and circumstances are valuable opportunities to learn. And invite the unknown, the creative, and the inspirational into your life. Enjoy that stuff rather than be freaked out by it. We're at like 100% life lesson. I told them very boring as far as like sitting and listening, but we got today and we got a half hour today. It'll be alright. The skills are really important. Are you guys still okay? We got just 10 minutes. You good? Yeah. Good. Thanks, kids. Last year my kids said really nice things about this, so I hope you get something on it. What, buddy? Yeah, can you ask your neighbors for a little bit of help? And then, I don't know. So you're highlighting a goal and you're putting your number, and 8's the highest you can go. Yeah, some of the kids just walked in from band. Interact effectively with others. Know when it's appropriate to listen, and know when it's appropriate to speak. I almost always err on the side of speaking, but it's not right. You gotta know when to shut up. Okay? So sometimes you gotta listen to others, right guys? Yeah. So no, but some of you never speak. So your problem is you gotta know when to speak up. So one way or another, you might be lacking in that area. Conduct yourself in a respectable, professional manner. So disagree with people politely. Remember how we say things like I politely disagree? That's important in our classroom. Be humble. So when I know I'm right about something and I'm in a conversation with someone who I know is not right, I struggle, but I have to tell myself, well, that might be true. I just really feel strongly about this. But I never try to make them feel like they're the dumb one. Okay, because that doesn't end well for anybody. They feel dumb and you feel like a know-it-all, and that's not good. So you always want to know how to politely disagree or respectfully agree to disagree or whatever. Be humble. Alright, the next one is work effectively in diverse teams. Kiddos, you work in partnerships and groups all the time. So think about all the times you work with groups. Respect your cultural differences. That could mean anything from religion to the way you were brought up by your parents, all that kind of stuff. Respect those differences and work effectively with boys and girls from a range of different backgrounds of all kinds. Be able to do that with no trouble. Respond open-mindedly to different ideas and values. Just because you hear something you've never heard before doesn't mean it's wrong. Maybe they just have a different perspective on it. Leverage social and cultural differences. So use those differences that you guys have in your group to create new ideas and increase your innovation and quality of work. Combine those great ideas that all the kids in your group have and use those differences for your own gain. The biggest CEOs of companies say we don't like to hire all the same people with all the same thought processes. We like to hire people that are all different because they're going to bring different ideas to the group. If you have all the same people thinking, they're all going to think the same way, and they're all going to solve problems the same way, which might not be the right way to solve the problem. You might need to solve a creative problem with a logical touch, and a logical problem with a creative touch, right? So you need all kinds of people. Find humor in appropriate situations. A lot of kids think that just means be able to laugh in school, and that's not all it is. Most of the kids who laugh a lot in school struggle with some of the other bullets. So will you look at that? Because a lot of people, a parent was mad at me who never read this once before. She goes, you gave my kid a really low score in find humor, and my kid is hilarious. And I'm like, you didn't read the bullets. You got to read the bullets. Because the bullet, watch when we read the bullets, that it's all these other things too that matter. All right, so perceive situations from an original and often interesting vantage point. So when you're seeing a situation, have a creative outlook on it. Don't necessarily just see it for what it is, see it for what it could be. Appreciate and understand other people's humor. So far, so good. Be verbally playful when you interact with other people. So like, joke around, but not teasing, but like joke around, be silly once in a while. So far, we're still good. This is where it starts to get questionable for some kiddos though. Be able to laugh at situations and yourself. Like when you screw up, you got to be able to just be like, oh well, I made a mistake. What is our classroom all about? Making mistakes and learning from them, right? No big deal. And the last one is be able to turn that embarrassment into laughter. Some of us who really enjoy joking around have trouble laughing at our mistakes. And that's why you might get graded a little lower. Lucas? And that's the exact right response, because what will crying about it do? Will that fix it? No, you just kind of have to go, good Lord, I just spent so much time on it. Oh my gosh, I'm a moron. Right? And be done with it. And then you're not really a moron, but doesn't it help to like tease yourself sometimes?
Yes.
Ben? Yeah. 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 Right, a weird face. I know, I've seen a lot of those. Juliana?
I mean, I just read that category, and I find it in previous years I've worked with a group like this. I've worked with like one person that always jokes around, and it's kind of hard to take them seriously.
Yeah, you gotta also know when to be serious too, right?
And in past years, I was very serious.
Yeah.
And it was really funny to see how we worked together, because one person was like trying to crack a joke, and I'm like, get on task. It was like really funny.
I have a really sarcastic family. Like they're always making jokes with me, and it's just nice because I'm able to laugh at myself.
Your family definitely has trained you. You just have to keep laughing at yourself for sure. Eddie?
So I do this weird thing in the videos, and it's like instead of like in normal way, I'll like do this. And Charlotte knows it.
I saw you guys talking about that yesterday.
She always goes like this. Yeah, at the end of the it's so funny. I just do it, and I don't even realize I'm doing it, but I just ended up laughing. It's scary.
I remember. I was there yesterday. You did it, Tyler?
I don't even know what it means. Like stuff about it. Okay. I do this thing, and I used the Sharpie first. But in like giant letters, I wrote spots instead of sports, and I couldn't fix it, and it was
My friend sewed wreaths that had stitches, and it said trick or tret or something. There was a missing letter in trick or treat. I don't know what the letter was, and she did it twice. She was so mad because you know how to undo stitching? Like that takes forever. So, but she laughed at it. She actually sent us pictures and said, "Look at what a dummy I am." And we laughed. Shreya? Last comment, Shreya, and then we'll get back on work. We don't have much more.
math test that I take a long time.
Uh-huh.
Some people say like you take a long time. I just laugh about it.
Yeah, but teachers are proud of you when you're trying your hardest, right? So I don't think anybody really cares about that. But kiddos, we all get teased and playfully teased, and we just have to be all right with it. All right, so let's do at least a page more, see what we get to. Manage assigned tasks. Kiddos, you know we're almost done, so just stick with it till 10:05 because Coach K is always a minute or two over. Set and meet goals, even in the face of obstacles and competing pressures. So prioritize, plan, and manage your work to achieve the intended result. Be able to multitask, do two things at once, handling many responsibilities all at the same time. Double check that everything is complete and all requirements have been met, like you put your name on your TFK, which some of you haven't been doing here. Meet deadlines without reminders from adults and peers. That's a huge one for you guys. Some of you are really struggling with that one. So remember, you should be at the point in middle school where you don't need adults or peers to remind you of when something's due. You've got to be responsible for that. So I'll baby you a little bit this year, but only so that we can get you ready for next year. I want to help you get ready. So managing your assigned tasks, are you good at that or do you need help with that? And it's fine if you need help, but try to get better at it either way. And then this produce results one, this is one that really transfers to work. People aren't going to hire you if you don't finish the tasks that you've been given, okay? They might hire you, but they won't keep you, okay? So do you demonstrate additional attributes associated with producing high-quality products? So do you produce high-quality products, and do you work positively and ethically, meaning you don't cheat, lest you don't take advantage of other things, you don't find loopholes? That's not right. There's a lot of ways we could go on last year's websites, we can go on our peers' websites and copy and paste. We don't do that. That's, like, please don't do that, right, everyone? Really, I'd rather work with you to get it done right than to cheat. Do we manage our time and projects effectively? Do we multitask? Do we participate actively? Are we reliable and on time, punctual? Do we present ourselves professionally and with nice etiquette? Are we, like, you're a 10-year-old, but professional just means are we appropriate students? Do we collaborate and cooperate effectively with others? Do we respect and appreciate all the different kinds of people in our team and the different things they bring to it? Are we accountable for results? Like, do we know that if we don't get done, it's our fault? It's not anyone else's but me, and then we share it eventually, but I am to blame too? Do we seek feedback? Do we want people to tell us what they think about it? And do we respond really well when somebody gives us suggestions on how to improve it or shows us where we've had a setback or a problem? And do we focus on our details and precision and orderly progressions? Do we know what to do every step of the way and really focus in on that, or do we sometimes skip steps accidentally because we're not being as careful? These are all important parts of producing results. The next one's leading others, so it's leadership. We're good at that, right? So kiddos, we have a half hour tomorrow to finish this. Does everyone hear me? So can you just not lose it? Yeah, because if you were at band, you know you need to do what we did already, kiddos. What? Oh yeah, sure.